Good morning, dear students. After learning about the features of Indian economy on the eve of independence, now we are going to start learning the state of major economic reforms which we will be dealing one by one. In this module, we will be learning about the state of agricultural sector. First of all, as we had already learned, the condition of the Indian economy was deplorable and it was stagnant. So was the state of agriculture too. Agriculture was suffering from stagnation, which means stability, and there was no growth. Nearly 70 to 75% population was dependent on agricultural activity, which contributed not more than approximately 59% of the national income, which was very less. So we can just imagine a situation where more than 3/4% of population is engaged in agriculture and not even contributing 60% to the national income. And therefore, the state of agriculture was deplorable. Moreover, agriculture was subsistence, that is, maximum population were mainly concerned with the production of food grain only for themselves, and moreover they were forced to cultivate the commercial crops, and the reasons for this was, first of all, the farmers, the peasants, they were exploited by zamindars who were the landlords, because the main goal of zamindars was to collect lagan from the actual cultivators of land without keeping into consideration their economic conditions. So farmers were very poor who were working on the fields of the zamindars, and these zamindars used to charge high lagan from these farmers because zamindars had to pay this amount of lagan in the form of taxes to the government. So zamindars exploited the actual cultivators of land to extract lagan from them and ultimately pay it to the government of the nation, that is to the Britishers. Second cause of stagnation was farmers were using old and outdated techniques of production, which was not giving them fruitful output. Irrigation facilities were lacking, no permanent means of irrigation were available, and fertilizers were used negligibly. So this was also one of the reason that the agriculture was not growing. This sector of agriculture where maximum population was engaged, that was in a stagnant condition. Low level of production and productivity. The output which was produced was far less than the demand by the people. Agricultural productivity was very low. When we talk about the food grains, that was almost negligible, and moreover these farmers were forced to grow cash crops instead of food crops. And highly irrigated and fertile land, as I told you beforehand, economy became disintegrated at the time of independence, and the fertile land went to the area under Pakistan. We can just conclude this. You just see the points flashed on your screen. Nearly 72% of the workforce was employed in agriculture. This is one. Secondly, agriculture was subsistence and stagnant occupation. Even if the people were producing the food grains, that was only for their own purpose, not for the purpose of selling in the market. Thirdly, production was very less than demand. Level of productivity was quite low because farmers were not using any modern techniques of production and they were using old and outdated technology. Irrigation facilities were not available. Fertilizers were used negligibly, which led to low production, low productivity. Farmers were forced to produce commercial crops, due to which famines, that is food availability, was declining in the nation. Another reason is forced commercialization of agriculture. This commercialization means farmers were forced to grow those crops. They were forced to grow those raw material, those crops which served as raw material for the industries which were developing in England, that were in the form of cotton, in the form of jute, in the form of indigo, and not food crops. So they were forced to grow commercial crops. Due to all this, what happened? market of food grains were not available in our market, and as a result of this forced commercialization, production of food crops that declined to a greater extent, and we had to buy the food grains from the foreign market. So in spite of more than 70% population engaged in agricultural activities, we were dependent on foreign countries for our own survival. We were not having enough of food grains. Frequent famines were taking place. Famine is a condition which takes place due to decline in the availability of food grains. So food availability was declining. Thirdly, some parts of India were under severe famine condition where massive deaths were taking place due to starvation. So we can just imagine a situation, a country where maximum population is engaged in agriculture and they are dying due to starvation. Country's condition of agriculture was deplorable. Heavy dependence on rainfall. We were not having any permanent means of irrigation, and our farmers, our peasants were heavily dependent on the rainfall for development, for the purpose of irrigation in their areas, in their fields, which was also, so this rain, if the rainfall was more, productivity was more. If rainfall is less, productivity declined accordingly. So this was a dependency condition of agriculture. Landlord tenant relations were not good because landlords were not the actual tillers of land. They gave their land on rental basis to the cultivators, to the landless farmers, and the zamindar's main interest was only the collection of maximum land revenue in the form of lagan from the farmers. So this landlord tenant relation, that was also not a healthy relation. Subsistence farming, as I told you beforehand, farming of the food crops was very less, and that was only done for subsistence. That is, all those farmers who cultivated the food grains, they cultivated only for the purpose of their family, not for the purpose of selling in the market. For selling in the market, they had to cultivate the cash crops and not the food crops. This is called subsistence farming. So despite of the fact that tillers were exploited, that is actual cultivators, they were exploited and were reduced to the status of landless laborers, they continued to stay in agriculture, and the condition of agriculture was deplorable. I hope that this module is clear to you. You are clear that the condition of agriculture was deplorable. We were highly dependent for cultivation of our crops on the rainfall. Condition was stagnant. We were following the subsistence approach. Forced commercialization of agriculture was taking place. Productivity was very less. Production was very less. Landlord-tenant relations were not healthy. This was the condition of agriculture. In next module, we learn about the state of secondary sector, that is state of industries. Thank you all.